Hello and welcome to The Pitch, home of the greatest movie ideas on the internet.
Except no substitutes.
Today's pitch is for a new Len Kabasinski movie, Pact of Vengeance. I first learnt about Len Kabasinski from Red Letter Media.
Okay.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the director, real quick?
Len Kabasinski he's a visionary genius of schlock movies. He's a personal inspiration and hero of mine.
Several of his films, and he himself, have featured on their series Best of the Worst.
Oh my god, it's our old friend, Len Kabasinski.
Well, he's kind of embraced his position as a cult icon now. And although, because of the current situation, he has had to permanently postpone the production of his new film, he was planning to make a movie with fellow Best of the Worst alumni, Leo Fong, John Michael-Thor, and Matt Hannon. If you follow his Twitter feed, then you know that initially he was trying to get Tommy Wiseau and Neil Breen to join them as well. But apparently that didn't work out. Now that's a real shame. But today I am wishlisting what my film would be. So I'm going to use them in the movie, and I'm going to try and come up with an idea that I would do if I were making the film Pact of Vengeance. Let's start with a little chat about what's so great about micro-budget movies, or even not just micro-budget movies, but independently made movies that are, quite often they're cheaper, they're not the Hollywood mainstream that you'll see in your cinema, they're quite often direct-to-video. Well, I've said many times on this channel already, and I'm quite sure I will say it many times in the future. You can intellectualize cinema, you can discuss why a scene works and why it doesn't, but at the end of the day, none of it matters. It's all about how you feel when you watch that film. It's all a question of, did the film elicit an emotional response from you? There's a reason why your reaction for something like the Emoji Movie may be very different from something like Deadpool. And in my opinion, it's all about the passion of the filmmakers behind the project.
Wow, nice suit. Zip it, Stanley!
Whereas the Emoji Movie worked as a promotional tool and also doubled as a soulless cash grab, Deadpool got made solely because of the drive and the passion of Ryan Reynolds.
It's one of those rare properties that comes along that they're reticent to make, and they didn't want to make it. It was 11 years I was trying to get them to do a Deadpool movie, but
every chance he got, he talked about trying to make that movie the right way and to make up for the mistakes that had happened whilst shooting Wolverine. He loves that character. I don't think you can ever tell me that there's a massive fan base for emojis. When independent movies, whether they be larger scale independent movies, micro-budget independent movies, whether they're direct-to-video, whether they manage to gain a cinema release, it doesn't matter. When they work, it's almost always because of the passion of the people behind the camera. Yes, the actors are important, but as you see very quickly when you watch those movies, that there can be terrible acting, but you can still love the movie for what it is. Making a movie is hard, especially when you have no money and very little experience. Let me be clear, there are cynical crap movies out there that will make you laugh and that you could enjoy. It is possible, I suppose, that someone above the age of 8 thought that the Emoji Movie was a lot of fun. But those aren't the films that you love. They're not the ones that stay with you. They're not the ones that you tell your friends about and recommend to them and you get them over to watch the film. They're not the films you fall in love with. They aren't the movies that you go back and watch again. Len Kabasinski's movies are. They are movies where you can see the passion that he has. You can see the drive and determination that he has to get his vision made. You can feel that real urge to create something. Indie films are often technically flawed, and they're certainly limited by their budget, but they are also inspirational. So, let's go back to the original pitch. What would I do with those 5 characters? Well, we're going to use the title that Len was already using, Pact of Vengeance, so clearly this is going to be a vengeance movie. Yay! They're the best. I really love them. Indie movies are quite often vengeance movies, and it's always great. Len will need to wear a lot of different hats, obviously, if he's directing and he's producing and he's writing as well. So I wouldn't use him as the main character. Instead, I'd turn to Matt Hannon. He's going to play an ex-soldier who has returned to life back home, who's trying to dealing with his ghosts. Cliché, I know. But the most important thing about this film is that it's entertaining. We don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. Cliché means that our audience is going to be familiar with the basic beats of the story. It's easy to introduce to them very quickly and efficiently. And if Roger Corman has taught us anything, it's that if you want to maintain a small budget, you need to be efficient. Anyway, the only family that Matt has is Grandma and a puppy. Hannon used to be part of an elite group of soldiers who all had their own specialities. We'll deal with the others later, but his was knife fighting and firearms. He's also an expert at using a samurai sword. Now let's introduce our bad guys. Our bad guys are going to be Tommy Wiseau and Neil Breen. Tommy Wiseau is a drug baron and an arms dealer, and Neil Breen is his technically gifted second in command. Grandma is coming home and there's an accidental bag switch at the airport. Grandma takes a large suitcase full of money back to her house. The henchman comes back to Tommy's house with a bag full of Grandma's clothes. Tommy obviously is insanely angry at his henchman and he shoots him. Fortunately, in the bag with the money, there was a tracking device. So Neil Breen uses 4 laptops that aren't even switched on to help track where the money has gone, and Tommy sends Neil and some men. When they get there, they're not really interested in talking to Grandma or letting her go. They're not hiding their faces or anything. So they murder Grandma and they shoot the puppy. And what's important is that Neil Breen pulls the trigger himself. Later on, Matt discovers his grandma and his puppy have both been murdered, and he is incandescent with rage. He goes to his old sensei who trained him in the noble art of the samurai sword. He goes to see Liu Fong. Now, Liu Fong is, I think he's 90 years old at this point. So I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to do any action set pieces. In fact, he probably needs to be sitting down for most of his scenes, like a late Cameron Mitchell.
Oh, hello. Welcome to the Ravenwood Asylum for the criminally insane. No, I'm not a patient. I'm the doctor. These are the files of the damned.
Anyway, Leo gives him some life advice. Let's go super cliched then. Remember, a man searching for vengeance must dig 2 graves, one for his enemy and one for himself. Liu Fong also says that, remember, if you don't control your anger will control you. But in more helpful news, he also suggests getting their old squad back together. So, Matt goes and visits Len Kabasinski, who is a ninja assassin, or at least he was when they were in their elite squad. Len fights with a dao, which is kind of like a machete. Sometimes they're really cool and they split into 2, like in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. He also has a seemingly never-ending supply of throwing knives and ninja stars. Len immediately agrees to help Matt, and off they go. And they visit John Michael Thor.
Yes.
Who is a demolitions expert. And guess what he uses for his demolitions? That's right, sonic weaponry. Essentially what I'm saying is John Michael Thor has a guitar bazooka. Matt has some CCTV footage from Grandma's house that shows that it was Neil Breen and his gangsters, and they know, because they're fairly famous bad guys, that Neil Breen works for Tommy. If they don't know it at first, I'm pretty sure they can go beat up like a drug dealer on the street who'll tell them. That could be a cool scene. We might even work that in. It'll be like John Michael Thor says, hey, I know a guy who'll know where to find them. So then they go and get the drug dealer. Cool.
Where were the other drugs going?
I never knew. I don't know. I swear to God.
Swear to me!
Both Len and John Michael Thor have reasons to get revenge on Tommy. And so we will tell those reasons in flashback when Matt visits each one of them. The three of them then plan an attack on Tommy's mansion. John uses his sonic guitar gun to blow open the doors, blow holes in walls, possibly occasionally shoot the ground and make people jump like they do. Think that scene in Commando where Arnie is running across the garden trying to get his daughter back. Like that. Whilst John's blowing holes and everything, Len will secretly and cunningly and ninja-ly go and he will be assassinating key targets. If there's a guy with a bazooka turns up, Len will be there with a ninja star. If there's like a super big heavy to be beaten up, Len will be there with his throwing knives. Meanwhile, Matt clears up anybody else that's still around. The three of them get into the compound. They fight through waves of bad guys, as many as we can afford, and then finally they get to Tommy's office. Tommy's sitting there, he can see CCTV covering his entire compound, and he can see the three men taking out all of his minions. So he tells them to open the box that's in the storeroom place where they're holding all the drugs and the guns. And he tells them to open it. The minions open the box and there's nothing there. Tommy demands to know what has happened to their most recent shipment of weapons. It's at that point that one of the computer screens flickers on and Neil Breen's face is there, and he reveals that he's tired of being Tommy's lackey and that he's taken the guns, he's taken the drugs, and he's taken the money, and he's starting up business for himself, and that Tommy should get out of town, otherwise Neil's going to kill him. Our three heroes get into the office, of course without large amounts of automatic weaponry. It's much easier for them, and they see Neil Breen's face revealing what he's done on the screen. Neil tells them that they should kill Tommy because he murdered the grandma and the puppy, and then the screen goes dead. Tommy begs for his life and says that if they just arrest him, or even better let him go, then he will tell them where to find Neil. They make a deal. Tommy tells them how to find Neil, and so they agree to spare his life. But as they're marching him out of his mansion to give him to the police, he sees a gun on a dead body and he makes a grab for it and tries to shoot our heroes, at which point Matt will decapitate him. after making a joke about Tommy losing because he lost his head. They then set off to hunt down Neil Breen. Of course, Matt has the CCTV footage, so he knows that Tommy didn't kill his grandma and his puppy. He knows that that monster was Neil. So they track down Neil, and again we have the same situation. They have to attack the compound to get to Neil. This does mean that we can cheekily reuse some footage if we really need to. Maybe invert it or add some different colour grading to it. But we can do if we need to. It adds to the charm and it saves us some money. Now, when they get to Neil's safe house, there are 3 ways in. So each of our hero takes a different way because this is a movie and that's what they're going to do. Because if it was real life, they'd just all take one, but that's no fun. And when they go through, there is a separate room that each of those entrances leads to. And in that room is somebody who is the sort of evil version of our hero that they have to fight and defeat. So, Matt has to defeat a samurai. Len has to defeat a team of ninjas. And Thor has to do battle over a larger space against a man with a minigun. Obviously our 3 heroes defeat them and then they finally go into the final room to confront Breen. If you've seen a Neil Breen movie, you know that he likes to get naked in quite a lot of them. So he's going to take his shirt off straight away and reveal a heart monitor that is sending a signal to bombs that are placed in each of the major cities throughout the world.
Governments don't dare try to kill me. I've let them all know that I've planted biological bombs in 7 major cities around the world.
We have a tense standoff, but fortunately, our heroes are ready for this. Matt reveals that Tommy had already tipped them off about the bombs and that there are jammers placed around the compound blocking the signal already, and that bomb squads have been sent to each of the bomb sites to defuse the bombs. Breen grabs a gun, tries to shoot them, and Len throws a ninja star that hits his hand and makes him drop the gun.
Put your hand on that wall, trooper. Put your hand on that wall! The enemy cannot push a button if you disable his hand. Medic!
Matt then gets his samurai sword and drives it through his heart. Neil's heart, obviously, not Matt's heart. That would be silly. They think he's dead. And they turn as though they're about to leave. But then Neil, in his death throes, grabs a machine gun that's lying on the floor near him. John Micklethorpe sees that, turns, strums his guitar bazooka, and Neil's head explodes. Because you need a good head explosion in every movie. I strongly feel this. Again, we need some cheap, cheesy one-liners, and then everyone laughs at the jokes that they've made. And I think we need a crisp high five between all three of them as a kind of 80s ending of the movie kind of thing. Yeah. So, that's my pitch for what Len Kabasinski should do with his next movie. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. Try to follow Len on Twitter. I'll put a link to his Twitter in the comment section below. Try to support him on Patreon if you can, because the guy's fantastic. And I'll see you next time on The Pitch.